While we remain in the last few days of Women's History Month in March, we wanted to point the spotlight on single mothers here in DFW. A recent poll identifies that 48% of single mothers in Dallas live in poverty. And beyond that, Dallas is ranked as one of the worst cities for single moms. According to WalletHub, Dallas ranks 133 out of 150 cities. Joining us on today's KRLD Afternoon News, Interfaith Family Services CEO, Kimberly Williams. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you for having me.
Were you shocked by this statistic?
No, I wasn't. I've been at Interfaith for 14 years as the CEO. And so I've seen this phenomenon throughout my tenure. It's very, very hard for single moms in Dallas, particularly working class single moms, to make ends meet.
Has it gotten worse since the pandemic?
For sure. It's definitely gotten worse since the pandemic, mainly because both rent prices and food prices have increased exponentially since then. It used to be where rent was a third of our family's income. Now it's 50%. So when families are spending 50% of their income on rent, then if you have a child under 5, another 25% on childcare, then you just have 75% left for food, for transportation, and all the other costs. And any little crisis can create a downward spiral that could lead to homelessness.
You know, with the pandemic and then inflation, I can only imagine that these past couple of years have been really challenging for organizations like Interfaith Services to continue to provide for our community. What are the daily needs that you guys tend to, and how can the community continue to support and understand what these single mothers are going through?
Sure. Our primary need is our rent assistance fund. We are able to house 50 families a year on site at Interfaith in our transitional housing apartments that are fully furnished. But we get another 150 clients that come to us who are in danger of being evicted that we help through our rent assistance fund. Those families access all of the services that our on-site families access. The only difference is that it's a preventative measure to be able to keep families in their homes and keep single moms and their kiddos in their homes before experiencing homelessness.
When we're talking about working moms, single moms having such trouble, how does that then affect their children?
It affects them emotionally. It affects their stability in school. Often, in an effort to find housing that's affordable, single moms will go from maybe apartment complex to apartment complex. And so that changes the schools of children frequently. And they may be on one section in one school and another section in another school. So there may be some gaps there. It creates academic gaps. Our average kiddo comes in 2 grade levels behind in reading. So we work really hard through our tutoring program to get them caught up, but it has those effects, not to mention socialization issues, sometimes isolation when children just kind of tire of learning new environments and new people. So stability in families is important, and particularly important for single moms.
It sounds like, just touching a little bit on the importance of having an organization like Interfaith Family Services here in the Metroplex. What is the daily challenges for you all continuing to service your clients, but what are some of the successes that you've had, and how important is it for people to know when they support, they're actually going to see these single moms thrive?
Well, we are incredibly successful. 8 out of 10 of our families complete the program, and it's because of the wraparound services that we have for families. When a single mom comes to us, we have childcare for kids 0 to 18, free if the mom isn't working, and an affordable rate if she is, so she can rebuild her life without worry about the safety and security of her child. Again, if a family comes to us and they're homeless, we have fully furnished apartments that we provide rent-free when the family isn't working, and then at a 30% occupancy fee when the family is. But we return 100% of that occupancy fee back when the family graduates to give a nice savings cushion, usually between $3,000 to $5,000, plus all the furniture in the apartment. So it's it's a complete fresh start for families. And because of that, not only do 8 out of 10 families succeed, but we have an over 90% success rate 1 year later in terms of those families still being in stable housing and still employed. So it's an incredibly successful program, providing just the helping hand that families need at the most critical moment of their lives.
Is there a cycle to this? Single mom with families and having a difficult time that their children may end up as single parents as well?
I think that it is, I don't know how much it has to do with the experience, but I do think that it's difficult to understand how maybe couples are to interact when you haven't seen it. So sometimes the pressure of building a relationship when you don't know kind of what to let go and then what to make serious because you've not seen that play out puts undue pressure sometimes on kiddos when they're trying to build relationships because they're sometimes either they hold too tightly because they're hoping that they can have something different than perhaps what they grew up in, or sometimes give up too soon just because they haven't seen some certain dynamics play out over time. So I just like with all of us, our experiences inform our decisions as adults, and it takes a while for us to kind of work our way out of the things that we saw that maybe we don't want to duplicate. The same is true for a kiddo growing up in a single parent household.
Why?
If in fact they don't want to duplicate it, that's assuming that that's the case. Some people, want to be single parents.
Yeah. Why do you think that Dallas fares on the list as they do, 133 out of 150, for not being a good city for single mothers? Why is that?
Well, I think there's a multitude of issues. One, I think, again, the cost of living is extremely high, but I also think it's how, we address poverty in general. For instance, if a person is on receiving some subsidies, they cannot have a male in the home in order to maintain those subsidies. So the idea of fighting poverty without having a unit makes some people choose to have to go it alone. And sometimes the man or the other spouse may choose to let them go it alone because they can't provide. And so that creates a dynamic that is, difficult for families. And then so between that, just kind of how we have historically fought poverty in such a way that we don't fight it where two people can be together, and how high it is when you have one income. If you're sick and your hours get cut, there's no backup. So it's just one of those things where it doesn't create stability when there's no one there to help you with all those responsibilities.
On your website, you talk about these issues and your mission there. You talk about equipping parents and educating children, but you also, in your solution, you talk about eliminating barriers. Talk to me about those barriers and how do you get rid of them?
So one of the major things is, there's a scripture that says that people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I think a lot of times people don't know, and what we find, particularly, let's say when it comes to our education, financial education program, just knowing how to build your credit, knowing why you need to be interested in what interest rate you're getting, just the financial education component helps our families and our parents to make different decisions. Also, we have an amazing career training program. So we come alongside families, help them get a certification program if that's what the parent wants to elevate wages. The average person exits with a $10,000 increase over what they were making before they came to us because of that training. We help them to negotiate their salaries. Women in particular are historically struggle with salary negotiation. So we practice that in mock interviews. We let them know what the industry standard is. And so all of these things educationally just help a woman to leave Interfaith feeling more empowered. And then we coach them through the process. So there's someone cheering them on. Every single mom, every parent, every dad that we serve, and we do serve a few, get a success coach that takes them from the beginning of their journey to Interfaith through the end. So having a champion who believes in you helps that parent believe in themselves. And because of that, they find themselves successful.
What is the outlook for Interfaith Family Services this year?
So, just like our families, it's one of those years where we're struggling when it comes to donations. Across the nation, there was a 20% decrease in year-end giving last year, and that affected us as well. So we're feeling that a lot of that pandemic-related funding, particularly for things like rent assistance, is no longer here. So we're having to do what we teach our families to do. We're tightening our belt. We're trying to make wise decisions so we can continue to serve as many families as possible.
One way to point out the fact of why it's good to give to an organization like yours is the impact on our own bottom lines, is
Yes.
save tax money that doesn't have to
Yes,
go.
we do.
How does that work?
Yes, we do. So our model is to transition families into non-subsidized housing. And we do that because sometimes subsidized housing will have limits on assets, meaning how much savings you can have, how much your car is worth. And so what we try to do is get our families in a financial position where they can go into non-subsidized housing and then over time systematically increase their wages without penalty of losing their homes or their housing. And because of that, because we do that, we save Dallas taxpayers about $5 million a year because our families are living independently. So to help families in this way, to provide a hand up out of poverty, also helps us as a community and as a tax base.
Is there anything else, Kimberly, you'd like to share with our listeners?
I just want to remind your listeners that as we are like going out when we're shopping, whether we're visiting our grandparents in the nursing home, the people that are helping us, working class folks that hold up society, they're smiling, they're helpful, but they may be secretly struggling. And a great way to think about them is to support an organization that supports the working poor because they are the lifeblood of our community. And this is a great way to show them appreciation by coming alongside them when they need it the most.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That is CEO Kimberly Williams with Interfaith Family Services here on KRLD. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.